There is a kind of person who makes everyone around them a little better just by being in the room. Not the loudest person, not the most impressive, not the one running things. Just the one who is genuinely, reliably kind, who remembers what you told them, who is happy to see you, who steps in when someone is being treated badly and never seems to want anything for it. Every good group has one, if it is lucky, and everyone in the group quietly orients around them without quite noticing, because a person like that is the thing that holds the rest together. This is the story of what happens to that person, at a school specifically built to punish being that person. We have spent a lot of time on this channel with people who are pretending, the girl whose kindness is a mask over malice, the girl whose confidence is armor over a wound, the boy who feels nothing and hides it behind a forgettable face. This school is full of people performing a self that is not quite the real one, and working out the gap between the performance and the truth is most of what the story is about. So it is worth stopping, before we go any further, to talk about the one who is not pretending. Her name is Honami Ichinose, and she is exactly what she appears to be. That is the whole surprise of her, in a story built on the idea that nobody is. She is kind genuinely all the way down. She is warm to everyone and she means it. She befriends people across every class and every year, including the students everyone else looks down on, not as a strategy, not to collect anything, but because that is simply what she is like. In a school full of masks, she is the one person wearing her own face. And it makes her, without any question, the most loved student in the entire school. There is a temptation, watching a character this kind, to assume there must be a catch, that the niceness is a strategy or a mask or a trap, because that is what this story has trained you to expect. And the genuinely disorienting thing about Ichinose is that there is no catch of that kind. Ayanokoji, the boy who sees through everyone, looks at her and finds nothing false. He even admits on the cruise that he found her beautiful, that he could not look away from her eyes, which is about as close to an unguarded human reaction as he ever has about anyone. The person built to detect performances looks at her and detects a real one. She has a lighter side too, which is worth mentioning because it keeps her from being a saint rather than a person. She teases. She notices things about people and gently plays with them, like the way she teases the shy girl Irie about her obvious crush, warmly, never cruelly. She's not a solemn moral statue. She's a genuinely warm, funny, slightly mischievous teenager who happens to also be, at her core, incorruptibly decent. That combination is rare, and it is why people do not just respect her, they love her. But there is one place where the warmth stops, one subject where the open girl closes like a door, and it is worth watching for because it is the whole story. She is deeply, painfully uncomfortable being praised. Tell Ichinose she is a good person and something in her flinches. She cannot accept it. She deflects it, changes the subject, physically shrinks from it. And in a story where everyone is hiding something, that flinch is the tell. The one thing she cannot bear is to be called good, and the reason she cannot bear it is that she does not believe it. And the reason she does not believe it is a thing she did a long time ago that she is certain would make everyone stop loving her if they knew. Hold that flinch, we will come back to it, and when we do, it will break your heart a little. Let me establish who she is before we get to what happens to her, because the whole tragedy of her story depends on you understanding, first, exactly how good she is. And I want to be clear that goodness, in her case, is not the same as softness, because those two things get confused constantly, and the confusion is what makes people underrate her. She's not a pushover. She's not timid. She does not simply agree with whoever is in front of her. She confronts people when she has to, threatens to report students who will not stop, holds her ground against the most intimidating boy in the year within minutes of meeting him. She has spine. What she does not have is the willingness to win by damaging someone. That is a narrower thing than being soft, and a much more interesting one. She will fight. She just will not fight dirty, and she will not sacrifice a person for a point, and those two restrictions are the entire boundary of what she is willing to do. Inside that boundary, she is formidable. It is only that everyone else in this school is playing without the boundary at all. She leads Class B, and she leads it in a way that none of the other three leaders do. We have looked at the other three on this channel. Ryuan leads Class C by fear, breaking his own people to keep them obedient. Horikita leads Class D by cold competence, earning cooperation by being demonstrably right. Sakayanagi leads Class A by sheer intellect and the prestige of being at the top. 3 different engines, and not one of them is affection. Ichinose leads by love. Her class follows her because they genuinely adore her, because they trust her completely, because she has never once given a single one of them a reason not to. Her homeroom teacher says she rallied Class B when it was falling apart, simply by being the person everyone could believe in. And Sakayanagi, of all people, the cold strategist who will later try to destroy her, names Ichinose's real weapon precisely. it is trust itself. The absolute unshakable guarantee that Ichinose will never betray an ally. No other class has that. It is a kind of strength none of the others can build because you cannot manufacture it. You can only be the sort of person who earns it, and she is. You see it the very first time she appears. She walks into a near brawl in the library, where Ryuen and his people are cornering Ken Sudo from Class D, a boy from a rival class she has no reason to protect. And she steps between them and she defends him and she threatens to report anyone who will not stop. She does not know Sudo. He is not hers. It does not matter. Someone is being cornered and she will not stand and watch it, and that is the first thing the story ever shows you about her. She is the person who steps in. It is worth sitting with how the four leadership styles actually compare, because the series is deliberately building four answers to the same question, and Ichinose's answer is the one that looks weakest, and is, in a strange way, the strongest and the most dangerous to hold. Fear, Ryuen's answer, is fast and brittle. It produces instant obedience and it shatters the moment the leader looks beatable. Intellect, Sakayanagi's answer, is powerful and cold, and it produces a class that follows because following the smartest person is rational, but it inspires no devotion, only calculation. Competence, Horikita's answer, is slow and real, earned over years, and it builds a loyalty that is sturdy but that took her the better part of the story to construct. And then there is love, which is what Ichinose has, and love is the strongest of the four and the most fragile at the same time, and both of those are true for the same reason. A class that loves its leader will do anything for her. It will hand her its money, follow her into any examination, sacrifice its own advantage without being asked. No fear-based or intellect-based class can match that depth of commitment. But a class that is held together by love for one person has, by that exact fact, a single point of failure. Break the person and you break everything at once. The other three leaders built structures. Ichinose built a family, and a family can be destroyed in a way a structure cannot, by hurting the one person everyone loves. There is a phrase that gets used about her by Ryuen and others that she is not a natural-born leader, that she would be better suited to a supporting role, and there is truth in it. She does not have the killer instinct of the other three. She will not do the ruthless thing, but it misreads what she is. She is not leading because she is the best strategist in her class. She is leading because she is the most trusted person in it, and in the end, trust turns out to be a form of power the strategists cannot replicate, right up until the moment they work out how to attack it. The school's own numbers back up the picture completely. When it rates every student, Ichinose comes out with elite academics, top-tier adaptability, and one of the highest social contribution scores in her year. The only thing she is weak at is athletics, and here is the detail that matters. Her grades alone would have put her in Class A, the top class. She was good enough on paper to start at the summit. The school placed her in B instead, and the reason it placed her in B rather than A is the same reason her whole story eventually turns, and we are going to come to it, and it is the saddest thing about her. For now, hold this. She's not in the bottom class like the characters we have spent most of our time with. She is near the top, she is beloved, she is genuinely gifted, and she is, by every visible measure, the person at this school with the least to hide. Which is exactly why what is hidden matters so much. Because there is one thing she is secretive about, and the story plants it early and quietly, and it does not look like much at first. On the cruise ship, Ayanokoji happens to catch a glimpse of her phone, and he sees her private point balance, the number that tracks how much of the school's currency a student is holding. And it is enormous, far larger than any first year should possibly have, an amount that does not fit the modest, fair-playing girl who would never do anything underhanded. And the moment he notices, she hides the phone. Quickly, she reclaims it, she moves it out of view, and for just a second the most open person in the school is visibly, unmistakably concealing something. It is a small moment, and it is the first crack of light into the thing underneath her. How does the girl who refuses every dirty tactic, who plays fair to a fault, who is humble to the point of discomfort, come to be sitting on the largest fortune any first year has ever held? The answer, when it comes, turns out to be the opposite of suspicious. It is one of the purest expressions of who she is that the story has, but she does not know that anyone will believe the pure answer, and so she hides the number, and the hiding is the first sign that Honami Ichinose, the girl with nothing to conceal, is carrying something she is terrified of anyone seeing. Let me explain the fortune, because it is beautiful and it tells you everything about how her class works. The points are not hers exactly. She functions as the bank of Class B by an arrangement the whole class agrees to. Every one of her classmates hands her a portion of their private points every month into a shared pool that she holds, a war chest, and the purpose of the war chest is singular and it is the most Ichinose thing imaginable. It exists so that if any student in the class is ever threatened with expulsion, she has the money on hand to buy them out, to save them, whoever it is. However much it costs. Think about what that requires. It requires 40 people to hand one person their money, every month, no contract enforcing it beyond trust, on the shared understanding that she will never touch it for herself and will spend all of it in a heartbeat to save any single one of them. That pool of points is not a fortune. It is a measurement. It is the exact numerical weight of how completely her class trusts her, converted into currency, and it is the largest such number in the entire school because she is the most trusted person in it. Her guiding principle, the thing she says and means, is that points can always be earned back, but if you lose even one person, there is no getting them back. So the money is nothing to her. The people are everything, and her class believes that about her so totally that they have literally put their savings in her hands. It is worth being clear about how radical that principle actually is at this particular school, because the school is designed to punish it. Everything at advanced nurturing high school is a competition measured in points. Points determine your class, your income, your future. The entire machine is built to make students value points above all else, to make them calculating, to make them willing to sacrifice a weak classmate if it improves the class's standing. That is the behavior the school rewards. And Ichinose looks at that machine and says, "No, I refuse the premise. People before points, always, every time. She will spend any amount of the school's precious currency to keep a single classmate from being lost, because to her a person is not a resource to be optimized. A person is a person, and losing one is a wound that no number can heal." In a school engineered to turn teenagers into cold calculators, she is running the opposite program entirely, and she is winning with it, which the school almost certainly did not expect, and which the other leaders find genuinely difficult to counter, because you cannot outcalculate someone who has refused to reduce people to calculations. There is also a quieter detail worth noting, which is that she serves on the student council, recruited in her first year by the vice president at the time. It seems like a small thing, a beloved and capable student joining the school's central body, and on the surface it is simply another sign of how widely she is respected. It is worth filing away, though, because it places her, early, inside the circles of the most powerful students at the school, and proximity to power at this school is never entirely safe, however good your intentions. It is genuinely moving. It is also, though nobody has said the word yet, a weakness. Because a class that has poured everything it has into one person, that roots all its trust and all its money and all its emotional weight through a single girl, is a class that has exactly one thing you need to break in order to break all of it. And there is a second, subtler cost to that fortune which is worth noticing, because it explains the hiding. A pile of money that large, held by one student, is conspicuous. It cannot be explained without explaining the whole arrangement, and the whole arrangement sounds, to a suspicious outsider, faintly incredible. 40 people voluntarily hand one girl their savings every month, and she never touches a yen of it for herself. That is a story that strains belief precisely, because it depends on a level of trust that does not normally exist between teenagers. So the truest fact about her, the one that most completely proves her goodness, is also the fact that sounds most like a lie, and she knows it. That is why she hides the phone. Not because she has done anything wrong, but because she has learned painfully that being unable to prove your innocence is very nearly as dangerous as being guilty, and she has been on the wrong side of that once before, and it took years off her life. There is a whole character in that small gesture of covering a screen, a person who is entirely innocent, who has been trained by experience to behave like someone with something to hide. And there are people at this school who make a study of exactly that. Before we go on, it is worth appreciating what her class actually achieves with all that trust, because a beloved leader who lost constantly would be a nice story and not a threatening one, and Class B is genuinely threatening. They are consistently one of the strongest classes in the year. They perform. They cooperate without the friction that tears other classes apart. They do not lose students to expulsion the way Class D does. They do not run on the internal terror that hollows out Class C. And they do not carry the arrogance that eventually costs Class A. Ichinose's model is not merely pleasant. It works measurably on the school's own scoreboard, and it works without anyone having to be broken to make it work. That is what makes her a genuine problem for the other three leaders rather than a sweet irrelevance. If kindness simply lost, nobody would need to attack her. They could let her be nice and finish last. But she is not finishing last. She is near the top, with a class that would follow her anywhere, growing steadily, and every one of her rivals can see the shape of a future in which she simply keeps rising, because the thing she has built has no internal weaknesses of the ordinary kind. No resentment, no fear, no dependency on a lie. There is only the one weakness, and it is not in the class at all, it is inside her. That is the shape of her then, at the start, the one honest person in a school of performers, a leader who rules by love in a place where everyone else rules by force or fear or intellect, a girl good enough for the top class, placed just below it for a reason she cannot bear to say out loud, sitting on a fortune that is really just the crystallized trust of everyone around her. She is, in almost every way, the best person in the story. And the story is about to spend an entire arc demonstrating that in this school, being the best person is not a strength, it is a target. So let us talk about the things she is hiding, the reason she flinches at praise, the reason she was placed in Class B when her grades were good enough for Class A, the wound under everything. And I want to tell it gently, because it is a gentle, sad, small story, not a dramatic one, and the smallness is the point. When Honami Ichinose was in middle school, she stole a hair clip. That is the whole crime. That is the terrible secret at the center of the most loved girl in the school. She shoplifted a hair clip once as a child, and it very nearly ended her. Let me give you the circumstances, because they matter enormously, and because the anime, unlike a lot of what we discuss on this channel, actually shows you this. It is not hidden in the novels. Season 3 gives it to you directly, in a flashback on screen. Her family was poor, no father in the picture. Her mother worked full-time, alone, raising Honami and a younger sister, and Honami was, even then, exactly who she is now, a top student, the middle school student council president, a scholarship-track kid carrying the weight of her family's hopes, trying to be good enough to lift them all out of where they were. And then her mother collapsed, overwork. She was hospitalized suddenly and there was no money, and the sister's birthday was coming, and the sister wanted one specific thing, an expensive hair clip, an idol brand one, the kind of thing that costs more than a struggling family has spare. Honami tried to find work to pay for it and could not. She was too young, there was nothing available, and the birthday was coming, and her little sister's face was the one thing she could still fix in a life that was falling apart around her. So she stole it. She walked into a department store, and she took the hair clip, because she could not bear to give her sister nothing, and she had run out of every honest way to give her something. I want to be careful not to make that sound noble, because she would hate that, and because the story is not asking you to approve of it. It was theft. She knew it was theft while she was doing it. There is no framing in which taking something from a shop is fine, and Ichinose has never for 1 second tried to argue that there is. But it is worth naming exactly what kind of person does that particular thing. Not a girl stealing for herself. Not a girl stealing because she wanted something. A 13-year-old whose mother has just collapsed from working too hard, whose family has no money, who has tried to find honest work and been turned away for being a child, and whose little sister is about to have a birthday with nothing in it. She did not steal out of greed or thrill or carelessness. She stole because she had run out of every other way to give her sister one good day, and she could not accept that her sister would have nothing. It is the most Ichinose crime imaginable. Even her one great failure is a failure of putting somebody else first. And it fell apart the way these things do. The sister wore the clip to visit their mother in the hospital, and the mother recognized it and knew it could not have been bought, and understood immediately what her honest, hardworking, scholarship-track daughter had done. The clip was returned. The store did not even involve the police. But word got out anyway, the way word does, and the commotion spread, and Honami, who had built her entire young life on being good, on being the reliable one, on being worthy of the trust everyone placed in her, could not survive the exposure. She fell apart, she became a shut-in. She stopped going to school, and she stayed in her room for months, roughly the back half of her final year of middle school, unable to face a world that now knew she was not who she had pretended to be. That is the secret. That is why she flinches when you call her good. She does not believe she is good, because when she was 13 and desperate she did a bad thing, and the people whose trust mattered most to her, her own family, saw her do it, and something in her never recovered from being seen. I want to stay with the shape of this for a moment, because it is easy to hear the words shoplifting a hair clip and think, well, that is nothing. Everybody does something like that as a kid. Why has it wrecked her so completely? And the answer is the answer to who she is. For most people, a childhood mistake is a childhood mistake. It stings and then it fades. But Ichinose had built her entire identity from the very start on being the good one, the reliable one, the daughter who would carry the family, the student everyone could trust. That was not a costume for her. It was the load-bearing beam of her whole sense of self. She was good, and being good was who she was, and it was the thing that made her worth the sacrifices her mother was making. And in one moment, out of love, out of desperation, to make her little sister smile, she broke the one rule her entire self was built on. And worse than breaking it, she was caught. Her mother, the person she was trying to be good for, looked at her and saw a thief. And the thing that shattered was not her reputation at the store, which the police were never even involved in. The thing that shattered was her own belief that she was who she thought she was. That is why it made her a shut-in for months. It was not shame about a hair clip. It was the collapse of an entire self. The good girl found out she was capable of not being good at the exact moment it mattered most, in front of the exact people whose opinion held her together, and she could not find a way to keep being herself after that. If you have built everything on being trustworthy, then betraying trust once, even for the most sympathetic reason imaginable, does not feel like a mistake. It feels like discovering you were a fraud all along. She has spent every day since trying to earn back a self she lost when she was 13. That is what all the kindness is. Not a performance, it is real, but it is real in the way that a person compulsively washing their hands is really washing their hands. She's trying to be good enough for long enough to finally believe she's good again, and she never quite gets there because the wound is not about her behavior now. It is about a thing she cannot undo. And this school, Advanced Nurturing High School, was her blank slate, her restart, a place where nobody knew, where she could be the good girl again from scratch, where the absence on her record from those shut-in months was just an absence, and the school assumed illness or truancy and placed her one rung below the class her grades had earned, and never knew why. There is something worth noticing about that placement, because it happens to two of the characters we have covered on this channel, and it says a great deal about this institution. Karuizawa was also placed a rung down for unexplained absences that were really the aftermath of something terrible. Ichinose the same. Both of them were assessed by a school that saw a gap in an attendance record and wrote down laziness, when what was actually in that gap was a child in crisis. The school prides itself on measuring people precisely. It grades 5 separate qualities before you have said a word. It watches everything, records everything, sorts everyone. And in both these cases it looked at the visible symptom of a serious wound and filed it as a character defect, because a system that measures behavior cannot see causes, and the two girls with the most sympathetic reasons for their records were penalized exactly as if they had simply not bothered to show up. That is the school in miniature, enormously observant and completely incurious. It will notice everything about you and understand none of it. There is one more thing about the aftermath that is worth naming, because it is the part people skip, and it is the part that actually explains her. The store did not press charges. The police were never involved. In the eyes of the law, nothing happened at all. And her mother, who was furious in the ordinary way that a parent is furious with a child who has done something wrong, which is to say it was survivable and it passed. The clip went back. The family carried on. By any external measure, this was a small incident that resolved. And it destroyed her anyway, for months, because the punishment that mattered was never going to come from a store or a police officer, or even her mother. It came from inside. Honami Ichinose convicted herself, and the sentence she handed down was far heavier than anything the world was going to impose, and she has been quietly serving it ever since. That is worth understanding about her, because it tells you exactly how the rumor attack is going to work later. You cannot hurt her by punishing her. She has already punished herself far more thoroughly than any enemy could. What you can do is far simpler and far crueler. You can just tell people. Because the only thing standing between her and the collapse she has been holding off since she was 13 is that nobody here knows, and the moment they do, the verdict she has already passed on herself becomes public, and there is nothing left to protect her from it. Now hold this next part carefully, because it is the cruel engine of everything that happens to her. The whole point of her time at this school is that nobody knows. She is built from nothing, out of genuine kindness, the most beloved reputation in the entire year. She is trusted absolutely. She is loved by everyone, and every single bit of it rests on the fact that the one thing about her that could unmake it is buried and safe and hers alone. Which means she is the most attackable person in the school, and she does not even know it yet. Because think about what her class actually is. It is not a structure held together by rules or fear or mutual advantage. It is a family held together by love for one person, and that one person is secretly certain that she is a fraud who does not deserve any of it. Ichinose is a keystone. Pull her out and the whole class falls, and unlike the other leaders, she has a specific, precise, buried weakness that a clever enough enemy could use to pull her out. There is something worth saying about how the anime chooses to reveal all this, because it is unusually generous to her, and it is not what this series normally does. This story loves to keep secrets. Half the characters we have covered on this channel have their deepest material locked away, hinted at, revealed only partially or not at all in the animated version. The show is comfortable letting you wonder, and with Ichinose it does the opposite. It gives you the flashback. It shows you the poor house, the hospitalized mother, the sister, the hair clip, the theft, the discovery, the collapse. It does not make you guess at what she did, and it does not let you imagine something worse than the truth. That is a choice, and I think it is a merciful one, because a story that withheld her secret would be inviting you to suspect her, to wonder what terrible thing the good girl is hiding, to entertain the possibility that she is not what she seems. And the whole point of Ichinose is that she is exactly what she seems. Showing you the truth plainly, early, means you spend the rest of her story knowing that the rumors are lies, and that the one true thing among them is a frightened child buying her sister a birthday present the only way she could find. You are not invited to doubt her. You are invited to ache for her. Let me be exact about why her kind of leadership is so much more fragile than the others, because it is the thing the whole tragedy turns on. Ryuan's class cannot be broken by hurting Ryuan's feelings, because it is not held together by anyone's feelings. It runs on fear and obedience, and you cannot emotionally wound a machine. Horikita's class runs on results and cannot be collapsed by attacking Horikita personally, because the loyalty there is earned and practical, not devotional. Sakayanagi's class follows the smartest person available and would simply follow the next smartest if she fell. But Ichinose's class is organized entirely around Ichinose herself. They pool their money with her. They root every decision through her. They depend on her emotionally as the fixed point of the whole group. Ayanokoji names the flaw precisely, and it is a devastating observation about her. Her leadership is so strong, so central, that it has quietly killed her classmates' ability to function without her. They have stopped thinking for themselves because they do not need to. She thinks for them, she carries them, she solves it. And a class that cannot function without its leader is a class that is one hostage away from total collapse. That observation deserves to sit for a moment, because it is the sharpest criticism anyone makes of Ichinose in the entire series, and it is made by someone with no reason to be unfair to her. It is not saying she is a bad leader. It is saying something more uncomfortable, which is that she is too good a leader, in a specific way that hurts the people she is protecting. When someone reliably solves every problem for you, you stop developing the muscle that solves problems. When someone always carries the weight, you never learn what you could have lifted. Ichinose's classmates are not weak people. They have simply never had to be strong, because she has been strong on their behalf every time, without ever asking them to grow. Her care has made them comfortable, and it has made them dependent, and dependence looks exactly like devotion right up until the day the person you depend on is not there. Contrast that with what Horikita does to Class D over 2 years. Horikita is harsher, colder, worse at being liked, and her class ends up genuinely stronger because she pushes people to carry their own weight, sets up study groups instead of doing the studying, demands that Pseudo improve rather than covering for him. She builds capability in others. Ichinose builds reliance on herself. And in the short run, Ichinose's class is happier and more united and outperforms. In the long run, one of those classes can survive losing its leader, and the other cannot. That is the trap inside her kindness, and the truly sad part is that there is no version of Ichinose that avoids it. She cannot help but carry people. It is not a strategy she chose and could unchoose. It is simply who she is, and who she is happens to build a structure with one fatal shape. So you do not beat Class B by being better than Class B on an examination. That is the hard way, and it might not even work because they are genuinely strong. You beat Class B by breaking Ichinose, by finding the one buried thing she cannot survive being seen and dragging it into the light and letting her fall apart and watching the class that was built on her fall apart with her. And there is a further cruelty in the arithmetic, which is that her own principle guarantees she will bleed. Remember what she believes. Points can be earned back, people cannot. She will spend anything to save one classmate. It is the noblest thing about her, and it is also a published, well-known, entirely predictable rule about how she behaves under pressure. Which means anyone who wants to drain Class B does not need to beat them. They only need to threaten one of them. Threaten a single student with expulsion and Ichinose will empty the treasury to save them, every time without hesitation, because the alternative is unthinkable to her. Her greatest virtue is, from a strategist's point of view, a lever with a handle on it, clearly labeled, that anyone can pull. That is the thing about being genuinely good in a place like this. Goodness is consistent. Consistency is predictable, and anything predictable can be exploited by someone willing to do so. Ichinose's reliability, the very quality that makes 40 people trust her with their savings, is also what makes her the easiest person in the school to plan around. And this is where the point Horde comes back, because it is the same weakness wearing a different face. Remember the fortune, the enormous pile of points she holds, the crystallized trust of her whole class. It is a beautiful thing when you understand it. But from the outside to someone looking for a weapon, it does not look beautiful. It looks suspicious. How did the modest, fair-playing girl come to be sitting on more money than any first year has ever held? And the honest answer, that her class loves her enough to hand her everything, is not the answer a suspicious mind reaches for. A suspicious mind reaches for the idea that she got it dishonestly. So the very thing that is the purest proof of her goodness, the trust made visible, can be twisted into evidence that she is a fraud. Her fortune and her past point at the same false conclusion, that Honami Ichinose is not what she seems, that under the good girl is a liar and maybe a criminal. Both of them are innocent. Both of them can be made to look guilty. And an enemy who has her real secret and can point at her suspicious fortune has, between the two, everything needed to build a story that destroys her. And there is a person at this school who has that exact secret in her possession, and who thinks about people precisely this coldly, and who has decided that Ichinose is a problem to be solved. Her name is Sakayanagi, and she leads Class A, and she is the closest thing this story has to Ichinose opposite. Where Ichinose is warmth, Sakayanagi is ice. Where Ichinose refuses every underhanded tactic, Sakayanagi regards other people's weaknesses as simply the most efficient place to apply pressure. She is a natural strategist, brilliant and condescending and physically frail, and she looks at the beloved, trusted, universally adored leader of Class B, and she does not see a good person. She sees a structure with a single load-bearing pillar, and she happens to know exactly where the pillar is cracked. The opposition between them is one of the most deliberate things in the story, and it is worth naming, because it is not just two rival leaders. It is two entire philosophies of what a person should be. Ichinose believes in trust, in fair play, in never doing the underhanded thing, in the idea that you can win by being genuinely good and bringing people with you. Sakayanagi believes that goodness is a luxury the weak cannot afford, that every person has a pressure point, and that refusing to use those pressure points is not virtue, it is just losing on purpose. To Sakayanagi, Ichinose's kindness is not admirable. It is a vulnerability she has failed to hide, an exposed flank, an invitation. And there is something almost predatory in how Sakayanagi selects her. She does not attack Ichinose because Ichinose has wronged her. She attacks Ichinose because Ichinose is growing. There is a line of thinking in the story that every defeat Ichinose suffers makes her a little sharper, a little less naive, and that if she is left alone, she will eventually become genuinely dangerous, a good person who has also learned to be shrewd. Which means the time to break her is now, while the wound is still fresh enough to reopen, before she grows the scar tissue that would make her invulnerable. Sakayanagi is not punishing a rival. She is culling a threat before it matures. That is a colder reason than hatred, and it is somehow worse. How Sakayanagi came to possess Ichinose's secret is a longer story, and here I have to be honest with you about the line between what the anime shows and what it does not, because it matters. The full chain of how the secret leaked, the specifics of who extracted it from Ichinose and passed it along, lives mostly in the novels. What the anime gives you is simpler, and it is enough. Sakayanagi has the secret. She knows what Ichinose did, and she has decided to use it. What she does with it is the arc that nearly destroys the best person in the school, and it is one of the hardest, saddest stretches of the entire series, and it is where we are going next. But before we go there, sit for a moment with the shape of what the story has built, because it is genuinely, quietly cruel. It has taken the one person who is not pretending, the one honest heart in a school full of masks, and it has made her honesty itself the wound. She is not hunted because she is fake. She is hunted because she is real, and because being real means she actually did the small, sad, desperate thing she is ashamed of, and a person with a real past has a real weakness, where a person who is pure performance has nothing solid to grab. The others are safe because they are hollow. Ichinose is in danger because she is a whole person, with a whole person's history, and history is a thing that can be used against you. That is the price of being the one who is not pretending, and she is about to pay all of it. The attack, when it comes, does not come as an examination. That is the whole horror of it. There is no contest, no test of skill, no fair fight that Ichinose could win by being good enough. Sakayanagi simply decides to destroy her, gets the sanction she needs to move from quietly bullying Ichinose to openly attacking her, and then reaches for the buried wound. It is worth understanding why an attack of this kind is even necessary, because it tells you how strong Class B actually is. Sakayanagi does not reach for rumors because it is easy. She reaches for them because the ordinary routes are closed. Class B, on the merits, is genuinely formidable. Ichinose is academically elite. Her class is unified, cooperative, well-resourced, and sitting on a war chest that can buy any of them out of trouble. Beating them in a straight examination is a real problem, and it might not work. But every fortress has a gate, and Class B's gate is a single girl's psychology, so Sakayanagi does not attack the walls. She goes around them entirely, ignores the class, ignores the examinations, ignores the points, and aims at the one place where the whole structure has a nerve. It is not the lazy option. It is the correct one, which is what makes it so chilling. A cold enough strategist looking at a group held together by love does not see something admirable. She sees an unusually well-labeled weak point. It arrives as rumors. Anonymous posts start appearing on the message boards the students use, and they brand Honami Ichinose a criminal. And they are not subtle. The posts accuse her of a whole spread of terrible things, some of them lurid, drugs and prostitution and robbery and violence, a pile of ugly claims thrown at the wall to create as much chaos and doubt as possible. And buried in the middle of all those false, invented rumors is one that is true: the shoplifting, the hair clip, the real thing she did as a desperate child, sitting there in the pile of lies, indistinguishable from them, and unlike the lies, this one she cannot fully deny because it happened. That is the genius and the cruelty of the attack. If it were only lies, she could stand up and say none of this is true, and her reputation would carry her. But by seeding the one true thing among the many false things, Sakayanagi has made it impossible for Ichinose to defend herself cleanly, because any defense has to reckon with the fact that yes, one of these, the shameful buried one, actually is real. And Ichinose knows it is real, and the knowledge that the thing she has spent years burying is now out there, being read by everyone she has worked so hard to be good for, is precisely the wound she cannot survive. At first she keeps a composed face in public, because that is what she does, she carries it for everyone else. But the composure is a shell over a person whose deepest fear is coming true in real time. The one thing she built this whole new life to escape has followed her here, and everyone is going to know, and they are going to stop loving her, exactly as she has always secretly believed they would if they knew what she really was. There is a particular cruelty in the mixture of true and false accusations that is worth spelling out, because it is doing something worse than just lying about her. If you accuse an innocent person of something they did not do, they can be angry. Anger is clean. It gives you energy and a clear target and the moral high ground, and Ichinose, defending someone else against a false charge, would be formidable. We have seen her do it, stepping between ruin and a boy she barely knew. But you cannot be cleanly angry when one of the accusations is true. The truth in the middle contaminates everything. It makes her doubt her own right to be indignant. Every time she wants to say this is all lies, some part of her says, but not all of it, and that part is right, and it takes the ground out from under her. She cannot defend herself with a whole heart, because a piece of the attack is honest, and she is not capable of the kind of shamelessness that would let her deny it anyway. So she is disarmed by her own honesty. The only weapon that would work here is the willingness to lie convincingly, and it is the one weapon she does not have and will not pick up. Sakayanagi has effectively designed an attack that Ichinose's own character prevents her from fighting. And then she breaks. She stops coming to school. She shuts herself in her dorm room and will not come out. And if that sounds familiar, it is because it is the exact thing that happened to her when she was 13. The rumors have not just hurt her. They have reached back through the years and reopened the original wound, and she reverts completely to the shut-in she was in middle school, collapsing in on herself, unable to face a world that now sees what she is. The most present, most reliable, most therefore everyone person in the school vanishes into a room and locks the door. Her class, the class that cannot function without her, begins to come apart. The keystone is gone, and this is the moment Sakayanagi engineered, the whole point of the attack. Break Ichinose and Class B breaks with her. It is working exactly as designed. It is worth stopping to feel the full weight of what is happening to her class while she is behind that door, because it is the proof of everything the story has been quietly setting up about her kind of leadership. A fear-based class with its leader gone would simply obey the next frightening person. An intellect-based class would follow the next smart plan. But Ichinose's class does not know how to function without Ichinose, because she has been functioning for them, carrying them, solving it, for so long that they have forgotten how to do it themselves. So with her in her room, they do not just lose a leader, they lose the ability to act at all. They mill, they worry, they wait for her, and she does not come, and there is no structure underneath her to hold them up, because she was the structure. This is the thing Ayanokoji had named coldly, long before, as the flaw in her leadership. It was so strong it made everyone dependent. And here is the flaw, cashed in real time. The most beloved class in the school is being destroyed not by a better class but by the simple removal of one girl, and it is happening exactly the way the cold strategist predicted it would, because love that centralizes is love that can be decapitated. And then someone comes to the door. I have to be careful here and honest, because who saves her and how is one of the most morally complicated things in the whole series, and it would be easy to tell it as a simple rescue, and it is not a simple rescue. And before I tell you who, it is worth sitting with the fact that it is not her class. 40 people who love her, who owe her everything, who have handed her their savings and their trust in their futures, and not one of them is able to get through that door. Not because they do not care. They care enormously. They are frantic about her, but they have never once in their entire time at this school been the ones doing the rescuing. She has always been the rescuer. That is the arrangement, and it has run one direction for so long that when it needs to reverse, nobody knows how. That is the quiet, devastating cost of being the person who carries everyone. When you finally fall, the people you carried are standing around you with their hands out and no idea what to do, because you never taught them, because you never needed them to know, because doing it yourself was always easier and kinder and faster. She built a class that adores her and cannot help her, and the failure is hers as much as theirs, and it was made out of love. So the person who gets through the door is not one of the 40 who love her. It is someone else entirely. Ayanokoji is the one who intervenes, and he does it in two completely different registers at once, and you cannot really separate them, and the story does not want you to. The first register is personal, and it is genuinely gentle, and it is also, if you look at it coldly, a tactic. He comes to her door repeatedly. He brings her soup and he sits with her and he waits patiently through her walls until she finally opens up to him and tells him the truth about her past. He is the first person she says it to out loud by choice, and in the telling and in his not recoiling, something in her begins to steady. He breaks through the shell that the rumors built, and he does it with soup and patience, and it works. She begins slowly to rebuild. Now, one reading of that is that it is one of the kindest things anyone does in the entire series. A broken girl and a boy who sits with her until she can breathe again. And another reading equally supported is that it is cold and calculated, that he identified exactly what she needed to be brought back into functioning order and administered it precisely, the way you would repair a useful machine, and that the gentleness was a technique. The story lets both be true. He does bring her back. Whether he does it out of care or out of use, it genuinely does not say, and I am not going to pretend it does. The second register is strategic, and it is ruthless, and it is how he actually kills the rumors. Because being kind to Ichinose personally does not stop the message boards. To do that, he does something much colder. He buys information. He goes to Kushida, the girl who collects everyone's secrets, and he pays her heavily for a large dossier of dirt on students across the whole year. And then he takes that dossier and hands it to a student council vice president, an older student from Class A, and has it dumped all at once onto the same message boards. Suddenly the boards are not full of rumors about Ichinose. They are full of rumors about everyone. A flood of secrets all at once, so many and so damaging that the school administration is forced to step in and ban rumor-mongering entirely, to shut the whole thing down before it consumes the student body. And once all rumors are banned, once the whole category of anonymous gossip is declared off limits and unverifiable, Ichinose rumors die with the rest of them. Not disproven, buried, reframed as exactly the kind of unverifiable noise that is no longer allowed to matter. Sakayanagi's weapon, the one true secret among the lies, is diffused not by clearing Ichinose name, but by making the entire concept of these accusations worthless. It is a brilliant, cold, genuinely clever piece of strategy, and it saves her, and it is completely characteristic of the boy who did it that he saved the kindest person in the school by drowning the school in everyone's secrets at once. Sit with the moral shape of that, because it is one of the most quietly disturbing things in the series, and it is easy to cheer past. To rescue the one genuinely good person in the school, Ayanokoji did a deeply ungood thing. He weaponized the private secrets of dozens of innocent students, people who had done nothing, exposing their hidden shames to the entire school as collateral to create enough chaos that the administration would shut everything down. He saved Ichinose by doing to a crowd of strangers a smaller version of exactly what was being done to her. And there is a bitter irony in it that the story does not spell out but clearly intends. Ichinose would never have accepted being saved this way. If you had asked her, would you like to be rescued by having the secrets of innocent people dumped in public, she would have said no, absolutely not. I would rather fall than be saved like that. Her entire being rejects the method. So Ayanokoji saved her using precisely the tactics she would have forbidden, and he could only do it because he did not ask her, because he does not share her scruples, because the thing that made him able to save her is the exact absence of the goodness that made her worth saving. The good person could not have rescued herself. It took someone without her goodness to do it. That is a bleak little knot at the center of the arc, and the story leaves it there, unresolved, for you to feel. And then Ichinose does the bravest thing she has ever done, and it is the payoff of the whole arc, and it is hers, not his. She comes back, and instead of hiding the true rumor, instead of letting it stay buried under the administrative ban, she stands up in front of her entire class and she tells them the truth herself, out loud by choice in her own words, that she shoplifted as a child for her sick family, the whole sad small story. The thing she has spent years terrified would make everyone stop loving her, she says to all of them herself on purpose. It is worth pausing on how much courage that takes, because it is easily the bravest thing anyone does in this series, and it does not look like bravery because there is no fight in it. She has just been through the worst week of her life. She has been publicly branded a criminal, watched lies about herself spread across the whole school, collapsed into the exact shut-in state that swallowed her at 13, and been dragged back out of it. The safe move, the obvious move, is to say nothing. The rumors are banned now. The whole thing has been buried under an administrative crackdown. She could simply let it fade, let people assume the true one was a lie like all the others, and go back to being the good girl with the secret intact. And instead she stands up and tells them herself. Think about what she is risking. Every single thing she has at this school is built on being loved. Her position, her class, her friends, the pooled trust in her hands, the entire life she constructed as a blank slate. And she has believed since she was 13 that all of it would evaporate the second people knew what she really was. That belief is not a small doubt. It is the organizing fear of her entire existence. So when she stands in front of that class and starts talking, she genuinely believes she may be destroying everything she has. She is not confident it will go well. She is doing it anyway, because the alternative is to keep living behind a secret, and she has just spent a week discovering what that costs. And they do not stop loving her. They rally around her. They relate to her, to the poverty and the desperation and the love for a sister that drove it. The thing she was certain would end her turns out to deepen their loyalty instead, because it turns out that the people who love her love the real her, the whole her, including the desperate 13-year-old, and not just the polished good girl she's been performing. When Sakayanagi jabs at her afterward, insisting that shoplifting is shoplifting, Ichinose stands firm, because she has finally done the thing she could never do before, which is survive being seen. No student of Class B is lost. The class holds, the attack fails, and in the aftermath, quietly, Ichinose gives Ayanokoji a belated box of Valentine's chocolates in gratitude. It is a small thing, and it is the very first seed of a feeling that the story will take a long time to name. Notice the shape of how that feeling begins, because it explains everything about where it goes. She does not fall for him because he is charming or impressive or kind in any conventional way. She falls for him because he was the one person who saw her at her absolute worst, shut in a room, stripped of everything she had built, exposed as the thing she was most ashamed of, and did not flinch and did not leave. He sat with her and brought her soup and waited. For most people that would be a nice memory. For a girl whose organizing terror is that being truly seen means being abandoned, it is something much larger. He is the living disproof of her deepest fear. He saw the worst and stayed. Of course she falls for him. Her entire psychology was primed to fall for whoever did that first, and he did it, whether out of care or calculation, and the effect on her is identical either way. There is something a little heartbreaking in that, if you think about where it leads. The thing that made her love him is a thing he may have done as a tactic. She is bound to him by the most meaningful experience of her life, and there is a real possibility it was, for him, a routine repair job on a useful asset. The story does not tell us, but she does not know either, and she loves him anyway. That is the emotional peak of her arc, and it is worth pausing on what it actually means, because it is more hopeful than most of what this series allows anyone. Ichinose spent her whole life believing that being seen would destroy her, that the love people gave her was conditional on them not knowing what she really was, that she was a fraud who would be abandoned the moment the truth came out. And the rumor arc forces the exact thing she most feared to happen. The truth comes out, everyone knows, and then it disproves her deepest belief because everyone knows and they stay. She was wrong about herself. The love was not conditional. She was worthy of it all along, past and all, and it took the worst week of her school life to prove it to her. That is a real gift the story gives her, and it is worth holding onto, because the road ahead of her, past where the animation currently ends, is not going to be so kind. Let me tell you where the animated story actually leaves her, and be careful about the line, because her story continues past what has been shown, and I am not going to reach past it. The school's own numbers, by the way, quietly confirm what she is, and they are worth reading, because they contradict the idea that being nice means being soft. Her rating card shows elite academics, top-tier adaptability, and one of the highest social contribution scores in the entire year, the number that measures what you give to the people around you. The only thing she is weak at is athletics. This is not a mediocre student coasting on charm. This is one of the most genuinely capable students in the school, whose grades alone would have put her at the very top, held back one rung purely by the months she missed as a shut-in. The kindness is not instead of ability. It sits on top of a great deal of ability. She could have been ruthless and excellent. She chose to be kind and excellent, and the school's own instruments confirm that the kindness cost her nothing in capability. Into the second year in the currently animated material, she is still herself. In the first big examination of the new year, paired with incoming first years, she prioritizes rescuing the weakest, lowest-scoring first years over taking the strategic advantage, which is pure Ichinose, and which her rivals note as a liability, because of course they do. Being good is still, in the eyes of the strategists, a weakness she refuses to correct. Think about what that choice actually is, because it is the whole of her in a single decision. She is handed an examination, a competition, a chance to gain ground on the classes she is fighting, and the optimal move is to pair with strong first years who will help her win. And she looks at the weakest first years, the ones nobody wants, the ones who will drag her result down, and she takes them on purpose, because leaving them to sink is a thing she will not do even when doing it would help her. Her rivals see a strategic error. What it actually is a person who has decided permanently that winning is not worth becoming the kind of person who abandons the weak to win. She would rather lose a little as herself than win as someone colder. After everything that has been done to her for exactly this trait, she still chooses it. That is not naivety. By the second year, she knows exactly what it costs. She chooses it anyway. That is closer to a kind of courage than to weakness. And then in the final stretch of the currently animated story, on another island examination, her feelings finally come to the surface. She overhears a plot by the adults running the school to expel Ayanokoji, and she does something that costs her, something she has never done before. She warns him. She compromises her own class's interest, the one thing her whole character is built on never doing, to protect one specific person. And in that moment, at the emotional peak of it, she tells him that she likes him. She confesses, actually says it on screen in the animated story, and Ayanokoji characteristically does not accept it and does not reject it. His response is deliberately, frustratingly ambiguous, a non-answer, and that is where the animation currently leaves the two of them. Her feelings spoken and hanging in the air, unanswered. There is something quietly devastating about the shape of that moment, and it is worth naming. Look at what she does in order to reach it. She warns him about the plot against him, and warning him means putting his safety above her own class's interest, which is the one thing she has never done, the one line her entire character is built on not crossing. Points before people, never. Her class before everything, always, and she breaks it for him. That is how much it costs her to say what she says. She has to become, for a moment, slightly less than the person she has spent her whole life trying to be, in order to protect one person she cares about. And she does it, and then she tells him she likes him, and he gives her nothing back. It is worth being fair to him, because a non-answer is not necessarily cruelty from someone constitutionally unable to give a clean answer about feelings. But from her side, it is the most exposed she has ever been. She has told him her worst secret, crossed her own deepest principle for him, and finally said the thing out loud, and she is left standing there with all of it in the open and no reply. The girl whose entire terror is being seen and then abandoned has made herself completely visible one more time, voluntarily, and this time she does not get the reassurance her class gave her. She gets ambiguity, and she has to live inside it. That is her state at the end of what has been animated, emotionally exposed, having just crossed her own deepest line for a boy who gave her nothing definite back, her class still in the fight. Herself changed, a little sharper, a little less naive, exactly as the story warned she would become, and still underneath it, the kindest person in the school. It is worth sitting with how much distance she has actually covered, because it is easy to miss when a character does not visibly transform. The Ichinose at the start of this story was a girl carrying a secret she believed would end her, performing goodness partly out of genuine warmth and partly as penance, unable to accept praise, quietly certain that everything she had was borrowed and would be taken back the moment anyone looked closely. The Ichinose at the end has been looked at closely, by the whole school. Her worst moment was dragged into the open, examined, gossiped about, and she survived it. She told her class herself and they stayed. She has been through the exact catastrophe she spent years bracing for, and she is still here, still leading, still loved, and now loved by people who actually know. That is not nothing. That is the single heaviest thing she was carrying, set down. She no longer has to be afraid of being found out, because she has already been found out, and the world did not end. Whatever else happens to her, and the story is not finished with her, she will never again be the girl whose whole life rests on a secret staying buried. She traded a hidden self for a known one, and it cost her a week of collapse and every ounce of courage she had, and she came out the other side lighter than she went in. There is more of her story after this in the source material, and it takes some genuinely dark turns, and I am not going to tell you those because the anime has not shown them, and it would be wrong to hand you the next chapter of a book the story has not opened yet. Where the animation stops is a real place to stop. A good person, tested to her limit, who survived being seen, and who has just for the first time wanted something for herself. There is one more comparison worth drawing before we close, because it puts her whole story in focus, and it is the comparison with the other girl on this channel who built her life on being loved. Kushida also organizes everything around being adored. Kushida also cannot bear to be truly seen. Kushida also has a buried past involving a school and a secret and a collapse. On paper, the two of them are the same character. And they are opposites, and the difference is the whole moral of both stories. Kushida's warmth is a machine she operates in order to be adored, and underneath it there is a person who despises the people she is charming. Her secret, when it came out, revealed that the kindness was a lie. Ichinose's warmth is simply who she is, with nothing underneath it but a frightened girl who does not think she deserves it. Her secret, when it came out, revealed that the kindness was real all along and that she had merely once, as a desperate child, failed to live up to it. They arrive at opposite places for exactly that reason. Kushida's mask survives because it has to, because the truth underneath would destroy her. Ichinose's mask comes off and she survives anyway because there was never a mask, only a wound she was hiding, and a wound is a thing people can forgive. Kushida is still, at the end of the animated story, alone with her secret, adored by people who do not know her. Ichinose is known by her whole class and loved more for it. Two girls, the same structure, the same fear, opposite outcomes, and the variable that decides it is simply whether the kindness was real. This story is cynical about almost everything, but it is not cynical about that. It says quite clearly that if what you are showing people is genuinely you, then being found out is survivable, and if it is not, then it never will be. So what do you make of Honami Ichinose in the end? She is the story's argument that goodness is real, and that it is not the same as strength, and that the two are sometimes even opposites. Every other major character we have looked at on this channel is protected by some kind of hardness. Ryuen by cruelty, Kushida by a mask, Karuizawa by armor, Horikita by cold competence, Ayanokoji by feeling nothing. They are all in their different ways defended. Ichinose is undefended, that is the whole of her. She meets the world with an open hand, and it makes her the most loved person in the school and the easiest to hurt, and the story refuses to pretend those are separable. Her kindness is not a strategy that happens to have a flaw. Her kindness is the flaw, and it is also the best thing in the entire series, and both of those are the same sentence. And the quiet, stubborn miracle of her is that after everything, after being hunted precisely for being good, after having her worst moment dragged into the light, she does not harden. She does not decide that the world is cruel and she should be cruel back. She stays open. She keeps stepping in front of the people being cornered. She keeps rescuing the weakest first years at her own expense. She remains, against every incentive this school gives her, the one who is not pretending. There is a question the series keeps circling with her, and it is worth leaving you with, because it does not have a comfortable answer. This school is built on the premise that the world rewards ability, ruthlessness, and the willingness to do what is necessary. Everything about it, the class system, the points, the examinations that force students to sacrifice each other, is engineered to produce people who calculate rather than care. It is, quite deliberately, a machine for manufacturing a certain kind of adult. And Ichinose is the one student running the opposite program, kind on purpose, fair on purpose, refusing to trade people for advantage, and doing well anyway, near the top of the school, adored, effective. She is the living argument that you do not have to become what this place wants you to become. So does she prove the school wrong, or does the school prove her wrong? Both is the honest answer, and the story refuses to pick. She is nearly destroyed for being good, which is the school's argument, and she survives it and comes out the other side more loved, which is hers. The rumor arc is genuinely a demonstration that kindness is a vulnerability. It is also a demonstration that a person who is truly kind builds up enough goodwill that when the attack comes, 40 people catch her. Both things happened. She was hunted for her goodness, and her goodness is what saved her. And the story lets those sit next to each other without resolving them, because that is closer to how it actually works. What I keep coming back to with her is that she never learned the lesson the school was trying to teach. Every other character we have looked at got harder. Horikita learned to allocate harm. Ryuen learned to watch for predators. Karuizawa learned to attach to power. Kushida learned nothing at all and stayed exactly as she was. Ichinose got hurt worse than most of them, in the most personal way possible, and she came back and immediately went right on rescuing the weakest first years at her own expense. That is either the most naive thing in the series or the most stubbornly brave, and I genuinely do not think the story knows either, but I know which one I would rather watch. The most loved girl in the school, who spent years certain that love would vanish the moment she was truly seen, standing up in front of everyone and telling them the worst thing about herself, and watching them love her anyway. Sleep well.